President Tinubu declares state of emergency in Rivers State, nominates Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas as sole administrator.
That this inevitable intervention will help to restore peace and order in Rivers State.
And Nigeria launches new task force ahead of raining season.
Efforts are made for anticipatory action for us to pool our resources and see how we can address our challenges proactively instead of reactively.
House of Representatives passes landmark bills to modernize Nigeria tax system.
Bill for an act to repeal certain acts on taxation and consolidate the legal frameworks relating to taxation.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we'll delve into political developments in Rivers State.
President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency in Rivers State following the prolonged political crisis.
Absolutely, Demola, and the crisis started with a fallout between Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his predecessor, leading to political disagreements with some members of the House of Assembly, which eventually culminated into a breakdown in governance.
Exactly, Claire. Things escalated when the governor demolished the House of Assembly complex back in December 2023 and failed to rebuild it, leaving the legislature in limbo. Despite several interventions, including from President Tinubu, the situation only got worse.
Let's recall that on February 28 this year, the Supreme Court ruled that Governor Fubara's actions were unconstitutional and ordered immediate restoration of the State House of Assembly. But he didn't comply, which further deepened the crisis.
With governance practically at a standstill, with explosions rocking oil installations in the state, the president has now stepped in, invoking Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution to declare a state of emergency. This means Governor Fubara, his deputy, and all elected members of the House of Assembly are suspended for 6 months. In their place, Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, retired, has been appointed sole administrator to run the state.
Of course, in what many observers have called a major political shake-up in our democratic dispensation with far-reaching political and economic implications for Rivers State and beyond. And Demola, barely had we finished our conversations here yesterday that we had the explosion, in Bordeaux area, and of course you heard the one that happened in
and that's why the president had to step in, to curtail the situation. Absolutely. On the program today, we will take a closer look at how we got here, what this means for governance in the state, and the possible ripple effects on Nigeria's democracy. I am Ademola Adeoye. Welcome to the program.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. It's great to have you with us on the show. To be good to hear what analysts will have to say on the development in Rivers State today on the program. So we enjoy you to stay, of course, and don't change the channel. It's live on the network service of the NTA, and of course Chukwudi Ubaja will be joining us later for the newspaper review. But first, let's hear highlights of the morning news, and Comfort Amodo is with us this morning. Comfort, what have you got?
Well, good morning. You and Ademola have started the story right on Good Morning Nigeria with President Bola Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, and that's due to the protracted political crisis and failure of the state's leadership to take necessary constitutional steps to address the situation. Well, President Tinubu, who announced this decision in a national broadcast, stated that the measure was in accordance with Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, which empowers the president to intervene in cases where governance is threatened.
By this declaration, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Similaye Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, and all elected members of the House of Assembly state are hereby suspended for an initial period of 6 months.
And the President has formally written the House of Representatives seeking approval of his decision to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State in line with Section 305 of the Constitution. Spokesman of the House of Representatives, Akin Rotimi, who disclosed this in response to media inquiries, says the National Assembly was duly consulted by President Tinubu in reaching the decision. And the House spokesman confirmed that the leadership of the National Assembly met with the President and the National Security Advisor ahead of the broadcast, alongside key security chiefs who were fully briefed on Mr. President's intentions and all unanimously expressed their support. He says Mr. President's formal letter informing the House of Representatives of his decision and seeking approval in line with Section 305 of the Constitution has been transmitted and will be read during plenary this Wednesday, March 19, 2025, with further legislative action to be debated and decided on the floor. The government has moved Nigerians' flood response from reactive disease or disaster relief to proactive preparedness with the launch of the Anticipatory Action Task Force on Flood. Vice President Kashim Shettima gave this hint during a meeting of the task force at the presidential villa in Abuja.
Climate change is for real, and there is an incestuous relationship between economy and ecology in the Sahelian zone. But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. This is the first time in the history of this nation that efforts are made for anticipatory action.
Vice President Kashim Shettima says President Tinubu has proved his mettle as a courageous and decisive leader through bold and hard policies. The Vice President stated these when he received a delegation from the Harvard Kennedy School alumni on Nigeria-Ghana trek at the presidential villa. The Vice President said measures are being put in place to address the challenges caused by subsidy.
So the government is adopting a multi-pronged approach, investing in the social infrastructure, building schools, giving hope for a better tomorrow, creating job opportunities, and then we'll be holding the big stick from behind, because we have to secure lives and properties.
Senate has set up an ad hoc committee to investigate alleged annexation of Nigerian maritime territories and mangrove islands by Cameroon. The annexed territories comprise fishing routes and islands that host approximately more than 2,500 oil wells.
The mangrove islands and waters situated at the geographical location called a Fiat Inbo local government area of Akwa Ibom State, marking the terminal end of the Gulf of Guinea down seaward to the Atlantic Ocean coast, is currently under the administrative control of the Republic of Cameroon illegally.
Mr. President should also take the diplomatic route of engaging with his counterparts in Cameroon with a view to saving our maritime territories and our oil wells.
In a move to modernize Nigeria's tax system, the House of Representatives has passed the 4 tax reform bills at Tuesday's plenary, and this bill aims to transform tax administration, which is set for a major overhaul in the country.
Bill for an act to repeal certain acts on taxation and consolidate the legal frameworks relating to taxation and enact the Nigeria Tax Act to provide for taxation of income, transactions and instruments and for related matters. Third reading.
All the 4 bills are read the third time and passed.
Those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Ademola and Claire after the commercial break.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their socio-economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, one person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, one person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
The holy month of Ramadan is here again, a month to submit to the will of Allah, a month to share, a month to care, and most importantly, a month of goodness. Start well and end well with the goodness of peak milk at Sahar and Iftar, and share the nourishing goodness of peak milk with everyone around you. Ramadan Kareem.
Peak. Reach for your peak.
In the heat of the summer, Okada seats feel like hot plates.
How do I cope with this heat?
And how do I cope with that bad odor?
By staying 5 degrees cooler.
Body odor is caused by germs, and on hot days, the sweating and the odor are more. That's why you need to get the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which offers up to 5 degrees instant cooling sensation and protects you from 99.9% odor-causing germs.
The sport is very, very important to the special kid needs. Engaging in this kind of activities, moving the wheelchair with the strength, is a form of exercise to reduce that stiffness of the muscle. It makes them to be self-dependent, not depending. We should believe that there is ability in their disabilities.
With Nivea Dry Deo, you can keep moving forward in life with confidence. Nivea Dry Deo. Derma 72-hour active protection against sweat and odor with 0% alcohol to prevent irritation. Stay dry and fresh all day long. Skin is for moving forward, Nivea is for skin. Your favorite Nivea Deo, now in a smaller pack size.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
At break time, when my champ needs to keep going, he's going to need his favorite snack, containing calcium, iron, and fiber.
Milo Energy Snacks, snack of future champions. Milo!
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Next on the program is Newspaper Review.
Right, welcome back to the program Good Morning Nigeria, and we have I have two papers. I'll start with
Chukudi Okoli. It's okay. You'll introduce me later. Life is what we call it. Yeah, please go ahead.
What are you?
You have issues with him.
Yes.
You have issues with him.
Yes.
Oh. Let's go, please, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
All right.
Claire, it happens.
Well,
you don't know my blunders when I was a presenter.
That's why we're not robots, you know. That's why we are not robots.
But that's true.
I mean, we are humans.
You know,
all right. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for that gap. So let's begin with the New Telegraph. Fubara's whereabouts unknown after Tinubu declares a state of emergency in Rivers. You can find the details of this story on pages 2, 3, 5, and 27. So that tells you the scope of the content of this report. But it has riders there. Suspends governor, deputy, assembly, exempts judiciary, appoints Vice Admiral Ibas, sole administrator. Links recent pipeline explosions to crisis in state. There's threatened anarchy in River State, says Ahamba, senior advocate of Nigeria. As Atiku accuses Tinubu of partisanship, you lack power to suspend democracy in River State. PDP tells Tinubu, President stampeding the law. Lawyers, we don't know which lawyers are those speaking. But that's the report on the front page of the New Telegraph. Now, the unpaid rent, Wike revokes PDP National Secretariat's land. The writers say revocation attempt to stifle opposition, PDP, it's done in bad faith, says CP-PDP, as Rivers chapter threatens to expel Wike for alleged anti-party activities. Again, read up this story on pages 2, 4, 6, and 7. Senate probes Cameroon's alleged annexation of Nigerian territories, set to compel social media platforms to have local offices. And again, these stories you can find on pages 3 and 4. And I just quickly get the other paper that's with us this morning. That's the People's Daily. And People's Daily leads again with the political development in Rivers State. Tinubu declared state of emergency in Rivers. Also trending just a little above below the nameplate, Wike revokes RFO of PDP National Secretariat in Abuja. Reps passed Tinubu's 4 tax reform bills. And you see the picture of the president right there in front there, of course, with 2 riders to the lead story. Now, underneath the picture story, Nigeria urges swift action on Africa's water security, and there are other Trending stories just at the foot of that paper. Senate probes alleged annexation of maritime territory, mangrove islands in Akwa Ibom by Cameroon. And Edo governor to probe Obaseki over $10 million spent on Observer newspaper. And fuel subsidy removal proves Tinubu's leadership mettle, Shetima tells Harvard alumni. Intervene in Ondo massacre kidnappings now, reps tell Tinubu. And so many other stories coming up now. So let me leave the rest for Demola. So you have something to read.
Yeah, I do. Now, I have the leadership newspaper with me, and just above the nameplate, "You are a noisemaker. Kaduna Assembly blast El Rufai." Details on page 6. PDP kicks over Secretariat land revocation. Details on page 29. Oil workers threaten nationwide strike over expatriate quota violation. Niger residents pay cash to escape abduction. Details of that story can be found on page 7. And state of emergency. Tinubu suspend Fubara deputy Rivers lawmakers for 6 months. Then the riders here, we have timeline. May 2025, lawmakers serves Fubara and his deputy impeachment notice. In January 2024, 2 speakers of River Assembly emerge. December 2023, Fubara and Wike signed peace deal. Fubara demolished River State Assembly complex, and in 2023, October, lawmakers attempted to impeach Fubara. Other state of emergency cases in 22 years. In 2013, Jonathan declared state of emergency in Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe State. In 2006, Obasanjo declared state of emergency in Ekiti. And in 2004, Obasanjo declared state of emergency in Plateau. Then we have federal government earmarks $700 billion to tackle tuberculosis, malaria, HIV, and AIDS. Reps passed Tinubu tax reform bills. Natasha takes sexual harassment case to BBC. Israeli strikes kill 413 in Gaza. Well, Chooks.
Natasha takes sexual harassment to
BBC.
Okay. Cameroon annexing portions of Akwa Ibom State. Are they not satisfied with the ceding of Bakassi to them? You know, there's this Igbo friend of mine. He say, the way hate this man is that if you give him allowance, you're going to begin find allowance. He say, you know why I don't like this man? If you give him pardon the English, he will start looking for allowance. Cameroon is looking for allowance. We won't give them that. Anyway, they'll sort it out. We're happy the tax reform bills passed by the representatives so that governance can move. I'm starting from a very happy note because I'm a sad man indeed. Fine, Section 305 has happened. The debate is now open to everybody. Some are going to tell you Tinubu does not know what he's doing. Some are going to tell you the president, let them all have their say. You know, the government would always have its do or its actions. But at the end of the day, what you're asking is, how much has democracy in Nigeria advanced to the expectation of the electorate? I want to tell you that it's still a sordid state of affairs. We started warning since 1 week ago about the social cost of what's happening in Rivers. We said Supreme Court judgments don't settle everything African. And that's exactly what is happening. Haven't you heard there were explosions somewhere there? Those were the things we foresaw. We knew some of these things will happen. That is why it is very important to be sure the caliber of people you're putting in governance. Very important. The caliber of people you vote in. The president heaped some blames on Fubara yesterday, you know, over certain, you know, but Fubara talked.
Is it the people that are putting them there or they are putting themselves there?
That's a different matter entirely. Okay? Whoever INEC says wins is the person we recognize. But having said that, The president listed a few things he wasn't quite happy with. But Fubara was telling them there that he followed the president's advice, and when the Supreme Court judgment happened, the politician is a man of many worlds. He tells you hold in the legs, you better go for his gonads, otherwise you might not get him at all. That's how it is. So having said that, quickly, the president didn't mention the minister of the FCT yesterday, did he? Because he's a sideshow. Officially, he's not recognizing these things. So when you hear, I won't allow him to dismantle my political structure and all that, those are African sideshows. And that is where you start addressing these problems from. The president has exercised his powers as granted by 305. He's done that. But the real problem is, what are the kind of promises that Fubara made to Wike and the rest of them before he got in there? Somebody said, I bought all their nomination forms. A man you buy a nomination form for should not even be a local government chairman. This country has to take care so that shenanigans do not befriend us on and on. Please, Claire,
you know, I want to restrict, speaking on this because really, I mean that's the topic
for discussion.
Yes, for discussion. So I want to, draw you back to the issue of the annexation of Nigerian, territories by the Republic of Cameroon. Yeah. And, just to echo, the words of one of the, senators that moved the motion, that if it is happening, it's indeed a national embarrassment. Because according to this paper, because I was wondering if the ancestral parts that, Cameroon is said to have annexed and to have, imposed foreign laws by the gendarmes, if it was still part of the, the Anglo-German Treaty of 1913 that ceded Bakassi and all that portion, of the maritime area to them. But this paper says this is nothing. Is noting that the islands in focus were not part of the territory ceded to the government of Cameroon by the 1913 Anglo-German treaties and International Court of Justice's decision of October 2002. As such, encroachment into these territories is not only illegal, but has led to huge economic loss of more than 2,560 oil wells and gas reserves, which ought to accrue to Nigeria. Apart from that, the Cameroonian gendarmes have imposed foreign laws on 16 Nigerian ancestral homes and villages in the said mangrove islands. And I think this is, we should not, just gloss over this.
Obasanjo is not a coward by any measure, any stretch of the imagination at all. So when under him Bakassi went to these people, he had decided that was the right thing to do. But you see, you tell people in life, don't push your luck too much. Yes, political expediency would sometimes overtake moral considerations. That's how it works in politics sometimes. But you could push your luck. I don't know whether it's Goldfinger. I read all the James Hadley Chase. No, yes, I read all that series and the Bond series as well. Bond told Goldfinger, it was, that told Bond, I hope I'm right. He told him, because they found him on his premises when James Bond had no business being there. He told him, Mr. Bond, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. Is Cameroon straying into enemy action? That is something Niger has to take up. You must, you see, the letter he wrote to his son's teacher, I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln, about how to bring up his son whom he was teaching. He told him at a point to learn how to close his ears to a howling mob and to stand and fight if he thinks he's right. It happens in life. So is it time for Nigeria to tell Cameroon, look, you're overreaching yourselves?
Well, folks, it's time for me to tell you that your time is up. Thank you so much for your review this morning.
Thank you so much as well.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
So we take a break now. Good Morning Nigeria continues. Stay with us.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Bye, Mom.
He's going to play in this weather. Why did you let him go? He might fall ill.
And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he win more trophies? To protect our family from illness-causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with Germ Defense gives you protection. Raining season brings a lot of germs, and Dettol soap's Germ Defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
The sport is very, very important to the special kid needs. Engaging in this kind of activities, moving the wheelchair with the strength, is a form of exercise to reduce that stiffness of the muscle. It makes them to be self-dependent, not depending. We should believe that there is ability in their disabilities.
In the heat of the summer, Okada seats feel like hot plates.
How do I cope with this heat?
And how do I cope with that bad odor?
By staying 5 degrees cooler.
Body odor is caused by germs, and on hot days, the sweating and the odor are more. That's why you need to get the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which offers up to 5 degrees instant cooling sensation and protects you from 99.9% odor-causing germs.
The Nigeria coat of arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we swear in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Diversity is unique, we have more than this nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry love. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Nigeria is perched on a treasure trove of solid minerals. Gold, coal, tantalum, tin, but none is more critical to our future or the world's future like lithium.
Let's talk about illegal mining operations. What is our strategy? All right, let's quickly delve into the crux of the matter that is reverberating all over the country as at today, the matter that concerns Rivers State and the future of Nigeria's democracy. Let's begin our conversation with a look at a background report that is put together by our correspondent, Ibrahim Tanhamidu.
President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency in Rivers State due to the protracted political crisis and failure of the state's leadership to take necessary constitutional steps to address the situation.
The latest security report made available to me show that between yesterday and today, there have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without governor taking any action to curtail them. I have, of course, given stand order to the security agencies to ensure safety of lives of good people of Rivers State and the oil pipelines.
President Tinubu, who announced this decision in a national broadcast, stated that the measure was in accordance with Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which empowers the president to intervene in cases where governance is threatened.
To declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from 18th March, year 2025, and I so do.
To manage the affairs of the state during this period, President Tinubu has appointed former Chief of Naval Staff, retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, as the administrator of Rivers State. The president, who recalled various interventions he made to reconcile the warring parties, emphasized that this action was taken in the interest of the people of Rivers State, ensuring stability and restoring effective governance. While the executive and legislative arms of government have been affected by the emergency measures, the president clarified that the judicial arm of Rivers State remains intact. What does this new development mean for Rivers State and the people of the state? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will discuss Rivers' political development and the implications for the coastal region's democracy.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim Dan Amidou, for that background report. And we already have our guest in the studio to discuss the latest development in Rivers in River politics. Right here in the studio, we have our usual political affairs analyst, Jide Ojo, who was here yesterday to just talk about the same thing. Jide Ojo, you are welcome back.
Thank you, Demola. It's a pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let me also introduce here with us James Igwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and he joins us live in the studio. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very kindly for inviting me.
And also from London, via Zoom, Professor Biodun Adeniyi, Professor of Mass Communication at the Bayes University. Professor Adeniyi, we're glad that you could join us this morning for this conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, let me start with Jide. Jide, you were here yesterday, and we had a very robust conversation. And of course, you all made your views known. Was this expected?
Claire, nothing could be off the table when there is a political crisis. But I didn't quite expect the president at this stage of the crisis to wield the sledgehammer. I was on Radio Nigeria Network last Thursday, and we have this conversation, and somebody called in to say, oh, there should be state of emergency. I said, over what? We know the dramatics personnel, and I believe that dialogue was not exhausted. You have recalcitrant children. As a father, you don't disown them at the initial stage. What you do is to find out what exactly are issues in contention. Yes, the president weighed in December 2023. From that time,
even when the eight-point resolution was agreed on, the perception out there was that it was lopsided against the governor, because all the governor got was he should not be impeached. But that's why that the resolution in December 2023 said, don't be impeached. But the man is caged. He is being forced to work with his enemies. One, those who have resigned, commissioners who voluntarily resigned, were asked to be reabsorbed. The lawmakers, he has to work with them, and all manner of things. And the perception out there was that this was not a win-win situation. The truth is that Fubara was in power, but he doesn't have authority. In all this period that he's been there, maybe he exercised some authority in the limited period that this crisis has festered. But you see, while you can exercise your authority as an executive, you cannot totally disown the legislative arm and run as a sole administrator. Because he's not wanting to work with the 27 lawmaker. Seems like he wants to run the government the way he perceives he should. But as we discussed here yesterday, it's a man in shackles who wants to break free. And he didn't count the cost of the carrot that was dangled before him ahead of 2023 election. You heard this in why yesterday. Somebody bulldozed all oppositions for him to be made governor, bankrolled the election, did all manner of things to make sure that he, from the riverine, was the first person to be governor of Rivers State. But did he ask, or was he told in a gentlemanly agreement, these are, because what we learned is that even the chief of staff, his SSG, everyone was appointed for him. He had no input. So it's like you are under surveillance, and every of your action, look at all the 9 commissioners that resigned when this crisis started. They all hold very sensitive positions. Commissioner for Finance, Attorney General, Commissioner for Education, Commissioner for Works, it's like and I recall what happened in Edo when Oshiomhole and Obaseki had their rough fight. Obaseki said something, I can't be in power and not be in government. Or no, I can't be a governor and not be a governor. Which means he was just a ceremonial governor at that time. That is his own perception. All appointments were made without his input. He just heard on the radio, oh, somebody has been appointed.
Now, what would you say in terms of experience and capacity? That would not be a fair comparison, because Obaseki had some, political antecedents, but Fubara didn't.
I'm not sure Obaseki had political antecedents. He was a technocrat, worked with Oshiomhole, and it was, again, Oshiomhole bulldozed his way to make him governor. Recall that Philip Shoaibu wanted to be governor, and he said, no, you can't be. Several other, in fact, Pius Odubu, who was a deputy to Oshiomhole, bought nomination for, wanted to be governor, but Oshiomhole said, it's Obaseki. And this is what Godfather politics is all about. But let me come back to issue of whether this state of emergency is desirable. I don't believe so. Dialogue was not exhausted. I called yesterday. I said, let National Peace Committee be involved. The perception in Fubara's camp is that the president is biased in support of Wike. Because in all of this, there was no word of caution to Wike for all the incendiary rhetorics that he's been making in the media. Last Thursday, you saw live telecast where he was calling a whole Ijaw people, they are minority, they are not majority. Hey, is it only them that can break pipeline? Is it all of those comments? Now the pipelines, they've started blowing the pipelines. Nigeria did 2025 budget on 2.1 or 2.2 million barrels per day projection. With the breaking of pipelines, 2 or 3 in the last 48 hours, how do you intend to fund your budget?
Okay.
So the bottom line is that if, look at what the president did in Lagos. When there was crisis, he sent a emissary, go and mediate. And even after the former governor of Osun and former governor of Ogun mediated and got Obasa back, and the majority of members of the assembly still felt that they don't want it. He called them last week. He called all of them to Abuja and, had dialogue with them. And they all left laughing. And from that time, the crisis seems to have mellowed. Why not call all the lawmakers and Fubara alone and Wike and say, what is your minimum? That is how mediation is. But when somebody seems to be getting upper hand, I don't believe the president should have left the FCT minister without word of caution publicly to say this is not fair.
Yes.
Okay. Let's
I have
get
a very slight different opinion from what Jide has said. You see, at this point, it ought no longer to be sentiments about who said what, who did what. What ought to be uppermost now is what we call the inevitability of governance, constitutionalism, rule of law, and of course morality. Now let me take it. Under Section 14(1)(b) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, as amended, the primary purpose of governance is to secure lives of the people and welfare of the people. And of course, the Constitution is supreme. So what ought to be uppermost now is no longer what role did the president play previously, what Wike said and who said. It is how do you secure the lives of the people of Rivers State? How do you secure the welfare of the people of Rivers State? How do you ensure that the people of Rivers State are not cheated out of democratic dividends at the moment? And that is what will bring to the inevitability of the action taken by Mr. President under Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let me explain. There is something that the political class in this nation has not learned. They have not learned about the inevitability of rule of law. Rule of law brings peace. Rule of law brings prosperity. Where there is observance of the rule of law, in fact, I carried a research internationally that shows that where you have observance of rule of law, your GDP increases by as much as 300%. That also applies to food security in Nigeria. Where there's observance of rule of law, there's increase in food, there's increase in everything. The political gladiators just want to foster their personal interests. It has to be me. Now, how do you now localize the interests of the people to a fight between a godfather and a godson? That ought not to be in the first place. So we must have to be able to have a mechanism in place that the political class would learn their lesson. And I think this is a practical case to enable them begin to learn their lesson. That you must have at all times the interests of the people, the peace of the people, the fact that the same Section 14 says sovereignty belongs to the people. And how you give the people back their sovereignty is to give them back peace, ensure that they are protected, ensure that you don't let your personal, two persons met in their friends over a bottle of champagne and agreed you'll be governor and I'll be your godfather. And then that played out, and then at the end of the day, we are seeing pipelines that are being blown up. We are seeing imminent danger. And if you look at Section 3053, it listed the conditions under which the president can take that inevitable step. And if you look at Section 305 subsection 3, it says, if Nigeria is at war, the president can take that action. Now, or any part of Nigeria. Now, if there is a breakdown of public order and public safety, the president can take that action. And if there is perception that there's imminent breakdown of law and order, the president can take that action.
So do you think that section subsection 3, again, actual or imminent danger of war, natural disaster, public disorder, are they visibly sufficient on ground in River State to
I think that ingredients of subsection C, D are present. And G, because there are 5 conditions, G also says that even the governor, with the sanction of the House, supported by 2/3 majority, can ask Mr. President to make that declaration. And if you listen to Mr. President's speech, and I took time to listen to him, I found a president that understands what I had just described as the primary purpose of governance. No president in any part of the world, I'm not a politician, but I watch from the sidelines. By the way, I have my reservations too, because they had dragged the judiciary into that fight, which ought not to be. These are public servants, people that have devoting themselves, the most hard-working arm of the government, dragging them into this sort of fight, dragging the chief judge, who absolutely has nothing to do, just doing his very best to ensure there is rule of law. I'll come to that. The ingredients are complete, my sister. The ingredients are complete. You see, the problem is that, like I said...
Which of the ingredients?
Ingredient C, where there's imminent danger. There's imminent breakdown of public order and public safety. 2 days ago, you heard about pipelines that were vandalized and blown up. Preceding that day, you had another one. Okay? And then, of course, look at it again. There's actually no government in Rivers State. What constitutes government under sections 4, 5, and 6 of the Constitution is a virile executive. Can you really say the past 2 years that the people of Rivers State have enjoyed virile executive administrative actions devoid of any rancor in an atmosphere that will enable them enjoy the dividends of democracy? You cannot say that. And then you have the legislature under section 5 that makes the law. Can you really say that the people of Rivers State, the past almost 2 years, have enjoyed the virile legislature making law for the good and order governance of Rivers State? You can't really say that.
Let's pause here a while.
Thank you.
And bring in Professor Adeni, who is joining us via Zoom from UK. Prof, hopefully you have listened to both the Leonard Sake and Jude. But again, there are 2 sides, of course. Opinions now would vary as to the wisdom in the choice of action of Mr. President. But some people have come to say, look, this is an ad hoc, high-handed, perhaps, way to go, given that some of the issues, that are listed under subsection 3, for instance, the public imminent danger or public disorder, can also be resolved, without declaring a state of emergency. What are your views?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning once again. A pleasure. I just hope this morning that technology will not disappoint us as it can typically do. But be that as it may, I think my first interest really is what I can perceive as the personalization of power. And of course, in addition to that, is the degeneration in a situation where we're having political disputation, evening up to economic crisis. It's like 2 brothers, for instance, fighting, and in fighting, they now think that the way to resolve the fight, is to amputate the legs of their respective wives. We're just taking it beyond bounds, with the degeneration into the explosions that we're witnessing in the oil pipelines. It's what I describe as the personalization of power. People thinking that they can do anything at all, just to even scores. I see this as senseless. I see this as nonsensical, and it's something that I do not imagine any authority allowing to fester, whether at the level of the states or at the level of the federal government. And of course, that was how I thought that the president came in with this state of emergency declaration. But even before the declaration, I also want to believe that there were things that we would have done Yes, it is a political crisis that degenerated, but political crises are also crises where humans are involved, where political interests are involved, where egos, and the prestiges of people are also involved. Why didn't you manage this very well? We know the personalities behind it. What was wrong with reining in on these fellows, on talking to them as the case could be, and of course getting them to do what they are supposed to do. They understand themselves better. They have been brothers, they have been friends, they have been compatriots and associates over the years. So if there are bust-ups in the circumstances that is leading to what we saw, it should have been better managed than I imagine. And of course, the fact that we couldn't manage it just tells us that we still have a part of the piece in our political jigsaw to fix, because egos are not cast in stone, and there are things that are flexible, adaptable, and adoptable. If we're not able to manage it, I dare say it means we still have a lot of miles to cover. But I think again that I was not honestly expecting the state of emergency declaration, because I didn't believe that it had gotten up to that stage. We saw that there was a crisis there, and we knew those who were behind the crisis, and we also understood that it was not beyond us, to talk to only one or two persons, and that crisis will have been over. So why was it impossible for us to get those two people, into a closed door and get them to commit to some obligations, things that will eventually bring peace, so that we'll not get to this level. It means a lot for Rivers to be in this kind of situation, considering the role it plays in the Nigeria's economy. And of course, apart from Lagos State, it probably has, the most vibrant GDP, where oil, our mainstay, is produced. And of course, if we're having this kind of instability, uncertainty, we know what it can do to capital flights, and the disturbance of economic activities against the background of government plan to grow the GDP up to 1 trillion at some point in the near future. And of course, the NBA is also planning to rebase the economy. All these things can come together, affecting us in the economic realm negatively. And that's why I thought it should have been managed on the first hand. But before then, it should not even have degenerated. And of course, for those who are personalizing it, thinking that because as brothers we're disagreeing, instead of me ironing the issue with you, the next thing I need to do is to go for a wife. I think this is ultra biased, it is outrageous, and it is completely unacceptable. It should be discontinued, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor Adini, for your perspective. Okay, we'll get back to you, but let's come back to Jide. Yesterday, when the president was reading the speech, he said, apart from both the House and the governor, not being able to work together, that some militants had threatened fire and brimstone against their perceived enemy of the governor, who was, up till then, did not disown any of them. Do you think that with that and the issue of pipeline being blown up, now we have 3 cases right now, what do you think will happen?
Exactly, my last word yesterday morning when we discussed this, clear you remember, was that when Malam Ahmed Sajo was saying Fubara would be impeached and nothing will happen, that it happened in Adamawa, nothing happened. I said no. The context is different. Mm-hmm. The environment is different. And I recall I said precisely that Rivers is the treasure base of Nigeria. That's what Professor Adeni just said now. You want the economy to grow into $1 billion or $1 trillion. You have a mainstay, which is petrol. This is why I said, with due respect to Mr. President, he should have cautioned the FCT minister when the FCT minister was grandstanding last week and said Fubara will be impeached and nothing will happen. He said, in fact, people were even saying, oh, maybe call the lawmakers to order. He said, I will not. Let them do their job. Heavens will not fall. See, when you have this kind of rhetorics, I'm a student of politics and conflict management. You don't exacerbate crisis by making unguarded statements. What led to the Rwandan genocide? Was it not rhetorics? Calling people cockroach? We will match them, we will kill them. Remember our former president that was alleged to have said that baboons and monkeys will be soaked in blood. You need to guard your statement. If you are in crisis and then you are calling bluff, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. This guy will be removed. This boy, I mean, if I were to be the president, he's serving under you. You say, no. Even if not directly, there should have been a statement condemning. And that will have sent signal to the youth of the Niger Delta that, oh, the president is dispassionate. But for almost 1 week now, mob is the word. You never caution this man that this your rhetorics will get the, because when 2 elephants fight, who suffers? The grass. The grass. The ordinary people. I saw yesterday the mobilization of military. The entire River State will be militarized. There will most likely, if there is persistence of this blowing up of pipelines, there will be imposition of curfew. So ordinary citizens who are eking out a living, managing to survive on daily returns, maybe you are a Okada rider or you are a trader, then you say everybody must be indoor by 6 p.m. or by 7 p.m. Does that work for the ordinary citizen? Meanwhile, the dramatis persona have accumulated sufficient wealth to even fly their entire family and themselves out of the country. So that's why I said it would have been better not to impose the state of emergency. As good and as appealing it may be, it's not going to resolve the matters. Because we have had militancy for a very long period. There was never state of emergency. Even when oil pipelines were routinely being vandalized, why was there no imposition of state of emergency? And then you remove the governor, you remove the deputy. Was the deputy complicit in this matter? Why was she removed? And meanwhile, look at the camp of the lawmakers. They want to impeach not just the governor, they want to impeach the deputy governor, they want the SSG removed. They said the SSG spent money without authorization. They are calling for the arrest of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission chairman, who is a judge, a retired judge. They are saying that the chief judge of Rivers forged certificates. So you want all of these people to be removed so that you can plant your own cronies who will obey you. That is not how to settle conflict. In conflict management, in mediation, you strive towards a win-win solution. Win-win solution here does not mean that you have wielded the sledgehammer. Let's wait and see in the coming days, weeks, whether the pipeline vandalism will stop. But now, militarizing the entire state, how does that help the ordinary citizen? I was in Port Harcourt just less than 2 weeks ago for a workshop. How many workshops slated for Rivers now will hold? Most likely, as Professor Adeniyi said, there will be capital flight. Most conferences, workshops that are scheduled to hold in that environment, because of uncertainty, you likely see it going to Uyo or Calabar or Benin, because nobody wants to be in a crossfire situation. So, which one is cheaper? If the president had called in Wike and Fubara, at least the two of them, have to have discussion. Whatever was the agreement you had behind the closed door ahead of 2023, remember the state is greater than you people. Sort out your issue. If you don't want Fubara to come back in 2027, next year there will be another primaries.
Listen to this. Since you talked about intervention, because in the president's speech, he was quite passionate. He said, I'm also aware that, okay, let me take it from here. He said, I have made personal interventions between the contending parties for a peaceful resolution of the crisis, but my efforts have been largely ignored by the parties to the crisis. I am also aware that many well-meaning Nigerians, leaders of thought and patriotic groups, have also intervened at various times to the best of intentions to resolve the matter, but all their efforts were also to no avail. Still, I thank them. Now, this is the president who apparently have been pushed to the wall, and he had no choice. Yes, please.
Yes. That was why I said from the very beginning that the intervention of Mr. President had become inevitable. Inevitable in the circumstance that he had done what he needed to do as far as observers, as far as I'm concerned. He had called them previously, and then they entered into some memorandum of understanding, which both parties did not obey. And remember, we're in a federal system of government supported by the Constitution, which Section 1 says the Constitution is supreme. There's a limit to what Mr. President can do in foisting whatever that was agreed on these parties. Now, remember also, in addition to those efforts, Mr. President receives security reports on daily basis or as the need would arise in the nation that ordinarily you and I do not see. So, he is in a better position as a managing director of a company, so to say, to take such a decision at a time like this. And remember also that the parties concerned had been in court since 2013. As a matter of... since 2023, thank you very kindly. They had actually been in court. Before the Supreme Court judgment of 2 weeks ago, there was actually a case that was decided by the Federal High Court on the status of the legislature, which went to the Court of Appeal, where the Court of Appeal affirmed the decision of the Federal High Court, which went to the Supreme Court, where where one of the parties withdrew his appeal, and that was dismissed. So there's a position already of the law, and whatever the judges say are nothing more pretentious. This is why I speak to politicians about the necessity, imperative, obeying court judgments and obeying rule of law. Because if they had just simply obeyed the outcome of those decisions and then use it as a basis to say, the courts have decided, the president has suggested, let's sit down and make this thing work. And if you remove your pride, no matter who you are, and then sit on the conference table, there's nothing that, okay, one aspect that occurred to me as the scenario unfolded is that we need to have a viable system of conflict resolution in Nigeria. You have the Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution. This incident should really tell the legislature to ensure that that institution has more money. Let them have the requisite resources to work with, and then give them more constitutional powers, some powers that will enable them wade into conflicts such as this. With the enormous research they would have garnered from both sides, be able to, for example, if Mr. President is calling for that kind of meeting, you would have an independent body that will furnish Mr. President researched materials on this conflict that will enable Mr. President to take an informed decision at this point. You see, most of the comments I read on the social media, on the newspapers, are born out of sentiments. Okay? Yes, morality is good, but morality and law are not the same. If you look at the state of the law, you would find that it's inevitable for Mr. President. In any event, under Section 306, remember the matter is still before the National Assembly, because, under Section 305, subsection 6, it says that if the National Assembly is in session, and they are in session now, and that if within 2 days that proclamation is made by Mr. President, the National Assembly fails to sanction it, both houses, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, sanction it by 2/3 majority, then it will fail. That's Section 305, subsection 6. So there's an opportunity okay, for the National Assembly to consider what Mr. President has done, because then they will see the details and to either sanction it, and they are wise men. If they sanction the proclamation by Mr. President, we should not be saying it will not succeed. What we should be saying is that we should pray for Nigeria for it to succeed, for the both sides to use the 6 months of suspension, because under Section 3056, President can also revoke it at any time. You can say, I hereby have seen that the circumstances have changed. Both gladiators should sit back, okay, have a cooling off time, talk to themselves, and then come back with a viable method of ensuring peace and prosperity for the people of Rivers State.
Let me ask you, Leonard Sakehouse. I was just trying to do a little bit of research. There have been a number of state of emergencies declared,
2006?
Yes, since, this democratic dispensation in 1999. And in some of those, there were for issues of insecurity. But there were also those who, were, states where this state of emergency were declared. And in Plateau, for instance, in Ikiti, the governor was suspended and an administrator was appointed, but the legislature remained. Now, in Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, the same thing, but this time, the governor, neither the governor nor the legislature, was suspended. I don't know, what does the Constitution really say? Has it been explicit on whether or not, that both the River State House of Assembly and the legislature and the executive should be suspended, at the same time?
Well, let me say that I agree with you and you're perfectly right. Remember, the first one in 2006 was because of the ethno-religious crisis in Plateau State, where the then president, Olusegun Obasanjo, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, waded in and declared a state of emergency. Then the second time was in 2016, I believe, in Ekiti State, where Ayo Fayose, remember the impeachment of Ayo Fayose, which was really going really bad. Similar scenario like this, and Mr. President waded in and then suspended the governor and his deputy, and then allowed an administrator to govern the place for a while. And when it stabilized, the governor went back. Similarly, in Plateau State, when the situation stabilized, the governor went back. In Adamawa, it was because of Boko Haram. President Goodluck Jonathan looked at the scenario and decided that I would declare a state of emergency just to ensure that there's more arms and ammunition, to ensure that the armed forces have all the requisite resources to work, and to also ensure that movements of personnel are not in any way impeded. They have all that they need to have. They have more money and so on and so forth. So answer your question. It depends on the facts and circumstances of the case. But it is provided by Section 305, subsection 3, that listed 5 circumstances, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, under which the president, when that fact arises, the president can take that decision. The first circumstance, if Nigeria or any part of Nigeria is in a war, we are not in a war. Then the second one is if there is breakdown of public order and public safety. Okay. Then the third one is if there is imminent breakdown of public order and public safety, which president in any part of the world would not say that there is likelihood of a breakdown of law and order when pipelines are being blown up. You see, I keep speaking to the conscience of politicians. Rule of law ought to be primal. You see, they swear to an oath of allegiance, and they hardly remember what they swore to defend and protect the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Defending and protecting the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria means you must at all times think about the people. When you think about the people, you don't take any action that will result in an inevitable circumstance where the peace and prosperity of the people are compromised. What has happened is that both sides had taken that extreme steps that now exposes the good people of Rivers State, that would depriving them the dividends of democracy that ought not to be. I am not looking at sentiments now, okay? Individuals speak in a way that they want to speak about. But you see, in a federal system of government, you must have a peace and conflict resolution mechanism that is above every individual. That is what one major lesson that we need to take away from this crisis. We must build a virile peace conflict mechanism system. Okay. Now, let me add something else. And the National Assembly is in a position to ensure the requisite check and balance in this respect. The National Assembly is in a position to ensure this. And also, the judiciary. The judiciary has played its role. The last time I came to this studio, you invited me to speak on the tax ahead of the new CGN. Now, the judiciary is playing a very key role in stabilizing Nigerian judiciary. If you look at the cases arising from this matter, you will see the judiciary rising above board. People are criticizing the Supreme Court, and I don't know why they are doing that. Supreme Court merely affirmed the decisions that were already granted, that were already given before you came to court.
Okay, all right, we'll come back to you. But let's move on now. Let's get to Professor Adeniyi. Professor Adeniyi, now we're trying to move forward, find a way forward to resolving this crisis. What do you think the two gladiators should do now that will enable the federal government to lift this state of emergency?
Okay, thank you very much once again. I'm very confident you can hear me clearly. I think we need not make any bones about this. We are seeing it where the president, being a human being, obviously has a soft spot, for one, and of course, which is the FCT minister. Well, as a human being, this is understandable, and considering it's a person, considering again what the minister has done for him in the past, and what he's still likely to do for him. And the minister, like we know, is a gung-ho person, he can be a political war horse. So any astute politician like the president is, will want that kind of person around here. But again, sometimes when you have a soft spot for somebody to get things done, or to soft sped up, you can talk as friends, you can talk as compatriots, you can talk as people that has a common purpose and focus. And of course, if you come in at that level, there can be understanding. So I expect really the president not to miss this part of the piece in the jigsaw. Very important, because the audience, the populace is also watching. The president does not want to be seen as being too one-sided. That's on the one side. On the other side is for maybe those who think that they can hold the Nigeria's economy to ransom, to think again, because they're not just hurting the system, but they're also hurting themselves, and they are also hurting the people of Rivers State who are in the immediate environment. We are tending towards primitivism if we think that if we're disagreeing, then of course the other way, the thing we can do is to hurt ourselves at a place where we think it will pinch us most. That's primitive thinking, and I thought that the 21st century will have moved far away from that line of reasoning. And the elders of River State, I want to believe they did their best. They did their interventions the last time when the crisis was festering. But they too, with the greatest respect, apart from one or two persons, were obviously one-sided, siding with the one who they imagined was vulnerable. And because of that, it deepened the angst on the other side. I think they should be elevated, in the way they intervene. And how can they be elevated? By not looking at one side alone, by not necessarily promoting the cause of one side, realizing that the other side that they're probably ignoring, that they probably think is overbearing, it's also very potent and very influential in its own way. And this is what has probably led to the present condition that we're in. But overall, what I think we should be looking at is the bigger picture, really. The bigger picture of our economy, the bigger picture of our democracy, and the bigger picture of our politics, because I'm not sure that any one of us, can be celebratory if things continue to degenerate. And we know how daredevilry, the fellows in the Niger Delta can be when it comes to being vociferous with destruction. They have told this part before. We do not want them to return to the Greeks, even though I'm not saying that we should placate or beg them, but I'm just saying that we should come to reason, because nothing can be better than logic and reason in the circumstances that we are in. And we are in a political environment.
Connection this morning, it's really impeding smooth conversation, and I do hope that we'll get it right when we get back to you. But just as you were speaking, Dr. Aminu Hatutu, Political Science Department, Bayero University, Kano, just joined us for this conversation. Dr. Hatutu, thank you. Hatutu. Hayatu, okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you for
I'm
having
sorry.
me.
Yes, it's a typographical error. Hayatu, thank you for joining us. We've been having a conversation, of course, on the political development in River State, and we're at the point where we're looking at, the implications of the president's action, Section 305, and all that. And let me quickly ask you this. 305, has given the president the powers to declare a state of emergency. But in declaring a state of emergency, does it automatically mean the suspension of two arms of government democratically elected?
Thank you very much. But I think if you observe, you realize that there is still a problem with interpretation of the law itself. And that's what has been dragging, Nigerians all about the space, with everyone thinking from their own direction. And that's why sometimes things like this end up, in the court of law for, proper interpretations. But be that as it may, I think that it is important to understand that as much as the law looks general, it doesn't really say that this is what the president can do or cannot do in the course of doing that. I think the power still remain with the president to take such decisions. And again, if you look at the antecedents that even led to this and what the president has said, all the problems that were encountered in the course in his effort to reconcile them and all of that, all that were provided by the president to give justification for the action that he's about to take. And that was why at the end of the statement he said he had no option than to take this. And then I think also looking at, what that clause said, you look at, the blowing up of these pipelines, some of these things have started. Insecurity has ensued, in the place. And then as far as he's concerned, that is what for him, might necessitate for, that. But then to also say that, that also means that, some organs of government can be suspended, like I told you, remains something to be interpreted in a way that some Nigerians might be surprised.
Do we know if, because in the president's speech, I'm trying to get the particular part now, and the president, of course, alluded to he's reaching out to both parties, exactly. And of course with some recommendations. And then he also alluded to, the fact that one of the parties failed to comply. Do we know if the other party complied with any of the issues?
Well, the reason might be that he's alluding to the action of the, the executive arm, for example, because it was all that, crisis was alluded to by the president as having emanated from the part of the executive arm, like the demolition of the State Assembly
complex,
yes, and all other subsequent actions that the governor has taken. So if he was going to make reference to anything, it is to show that he has been trying to, make the governor understand that certain actions need to be reconciled in different way than the approach he has taken.
Okay.
And then that's why it keeps referring to, I cannot, speak for the president, but that's the implication of that statement if you can interpret it in a way that it should be better understood.
Okay. Dr. Ayatu, thank you very much for your perspective there. Let's come back to Jide now. I mean, we have talked about, the consequences of this declaration on the state governance and the people itself. Let's look for a way forward. What do you think can be done? Because we are trying to round up this conversation now because we have another conversation. What do you think is the way forward out of this, crisis?
The way forward, simply, as I've suggested, is that while it is right for the president to have said he made several efforts and people have also made efforts, I would have loved a situation where the National Peace Committee, as an impartial arbiter in this matter, they should not just be doing peace accord ahead of every election. They can be brought in in these 6 months, it has happened. I do not see how the National Assembly will not affirm what the president has done. Yesterday, we read in the news that the president actually summoned the head of the National Assembly, both the president of the Senate and the speaker. So he must have briefed them. And whatever is going to happen today, which is the affirmation, is just going to be more or less, although two-thirds, people are saying that it might be difficult, but I don't see it not sailing through. But while it says true, and I like what the Learned Six said, that yes, the president said 6 months. He can also issue another proclamation to say, in 1 month, I've seen you people demonstrating sufficient goodwill to have peace restored. So go back to your respective position.
Do you think that is likely
it's
to happen?
It's not impossible, but the possibility of that would be to now have an impartial arbiter. Professor Adeni says something which we should not miss, that the president seems to have a soft spot for one of the parties for the reasons of what that party would do for him, either for next election or in terms of what he has done in the past. Assuming without conceding that has already made Mr. President to be perceived as partial. So if you have a National Peace Committee, or it may be eminent Nigerians, it doesn't have to be National Peace. People like Chief Emeka Anyaku is alive. People like General Yakubu Gowon is alive. People like Bishop Matthew Asakuka is alive. People like Abdul Salam Abaka. You can have 4 or 5 of them. Summon the FCT minister, summon the governor, and said, now, this is crabism. Both of you are losing. Can you try and manage your ego and resolve in the best interest of the state? This can be handled, and I believe within weeks, not even months. Peace, because once you extract commitment on the part of the key dramatics personnel, they will tell their foot soldiers. You understand? It is easy for the president to blame the governor that he didn't rein in the militants who are doing pipeline. This happened as at yesterday morning. That's when the governor may not have even been briefed before that state of emergency came up. And who is actually the chief security officer? The governor that, you saw ahead of, in the part when this crisis was boiling last year. He even accused one of the policemen. He mentioned the name of a policeman that was trying to endanger his life. So, by and large, I think this cooling off period is to have a sober reflection, have an independent arbiter. I'm fully in support of what Learned Six said, Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution. It's being funded by the presidency. Let them do their job. Find international national mediators, people, eminent Nigerians with unblemished character. I do not support what some of our leaders have done in this conflict. I don't have full facts, but there was news report about a former president encouraging the governor to be his own man, to rise up to the situation. That is not the way to go. The way to go is to say, this is a crisis. how do we resolve in the best interest of the people of the state who has been suffering governance deficiency? Because with one arm not working, they have not passed law in the last 2 years. They have not. The local governance system has broken down. The Supreme Court has said the newly elected local government officials. So now there could not be another election because there is a sole administrator who may not want to prioritize the organization of another local government. So you have another tier of government badly affected. There will be no proper governance at that tier of government. The 2 arm of government out of 3 has been suspended. So it's a collateral damage.
Jide, in fact, I was going to ask you for the far... Well, yeah, so just yes, I know. For far-reaching implications, economic and otherwise. You know, you have just hinted at it. When we come back, I would like you to speak further on that. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening. But that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
Welcome to Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis, a TV series dedicated to aging and older persons in Nigeria. Be part of this series and discover the transformative programs crafted to give a new lease of life to our senior citizens, courtesy of the National Senior Citizen Center.
The National Senior Citizen Center is the oasis for the senior citizens.
For thought-provoking discussions on aging, geriatric social care, and issues that matter most to our senior citizens.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Tune in to Silver Oasis on the network service of the NTA every Saturday at 10:05 p.m. Silver Oasis, improving the quality of lives of senior citizens.
All right, welcome back to the program. And of course, we are winding down our conversation, but of course, not before we get, perspectives on probably amicable solution. Jide, just before I bring in this Leonard Sake, I was going to ask you the larger implications for Rivers people. Because as it is, governance is at a standstill. And if you recall that the Supreme Court had put a check or a hold on the federal allocation to Rivers State. So what is going to happen? How will the sole administrator function?
Well, again, you see, you solve one problem to create another. The Supreme Court has said, if you fail to do X, Y, Z, your allocation is withheld. Now, maybe Lanesi will tell us whether the sole administrator will now have to, or the Attorney General will now have to, will now have to approach the Supreme Court to say this was not envisaged as at the February 28th, because the sole administrator will need money to run government, and none of the prescription has been fulfilled. There is no budget 2025 in the eye of the law. Right. So what will the sole administrator, what will he be implementing? And the president has said he cannot even make new law. The regulations, the Federal Executive Council have to approve it, and then maybe, I don't know, National Assembly may have to take over some of the functions. But look at the cost implication. This is why I said this has a spiral effect that was not initially contemplated. Because without funds, or if you now want to, the sole administrator now will now have to appoint commissioners. I don't know whether he will inherit the commissioners of Fubara, but I doubt it, because they will most likely go with the governor, all the aides and all of, because commissioners are aides of the governor. So by and large, before the sole administrator will start to land the ground to assert who to work with, who not to work with.
6 months is up.
It's 6 months is up. So the man has never been a governor. He was chief of naval staff. He has been a military man all his life. So, and he will be mindful that people will be watching him. If he panders to this, they say, oh, he's pro-wike. If he doesn't, they say he's pro. In terms of people we will appoint. So, it just tells you the story of what Chinua Achebe said in that proverb, that when two brothers fight to death, it's a stranger that inherits their father's property. This man is from Cross River. It's not from Rivers. So, but to now have to go to, because I don't know what budget he will be implementing or how he will be running the governance, but look at the wider implication. Capital flight. Even the money that federal government will spend to repair the vandalized pipelines, the maintenance of the troops that have been deployed, billions of naira will now be spent when we could have saved that cost for proper, infrastructural development or some other useful purposes. But politicians will not cease to amaze me.
Okay, let's say again, we're looking at the wider implications. Right. And earlier on, I asked questions about the limit of, the powers bestowed on Mr. President in 305, subsection 3. I'm wondering, does this not create another room for litigations and all that? I mean, if the president, the constitution is not explicit on, the extent to which Mr. President can apply the state of
Now, this is how the law works.
Yes.
No law lists out everything. Section 305.
Sorry, let me also add that even I hear the members of the Bar Association have also raised this issue, to which your learned segment.
Yeah, of course, I'm a member of the Nigeria Bar Association, and then I believe in whatever my association says, but this is my personal opinion. You see, the powers given to Mr. President is the power to proclaim a state of emergency, make a proclamation and publish it in the Gazette. Now, the latitude of what will emerge will be defined by what a state of emergency means. A state of emergency means extra constitutional measures taken when there is danger or there is imminent breakdown of public order and public safety. So it will now depend on facts and circumstances of the case. And it's also it becomes a discretionary power which ought to be exercised if it's in the legal way, you say judicially and judicially. So in the context of Mr. President, it has to be exercised in good conscience and also taking into cognizance the fact that human lives are supreme. I think that is what is really motivating Mr. President. I started by citing section 14(1) subsection B of the Constitution that provides that the primary purpose of government is to secure lives and property and welfare of the people. At this stage,
are there likely to be litigations?
Well, the Constitution gives parties right at any time to go to court, but I don't expect people should go to court now. What people should do now, because they have done a lot litigation. Do you know before the Supreme Court there were 8 consolidated appeals? Before then, there were already cases that have been decided by Federal High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court on the same issue.
Concerning Rivers.
Concerning Rivers, what I expect now is peace. What I expect now is effective peace mechanism. What I expect now is leave the judiciary alone, let them do their job. Do not drag them. Politicians look at the judges as a way like a towel to clean your hands. That ought not to be. They are hardworking. In fact, the most hardworking branch of the government.
Yes, I think
leave them to do their work.
Dr. Ayatu,
this is just a challenge to the law of the land, and I'm saying this because we seem to be going to court all the time on many cases because of this lack of explicit interpretation that the land itself talked about. And I think it's high time that we realize that our political culture, has its own, spatial outlook, that we need to do things that will solve our problems, because these laws are not God sent. We are the ones who made them, and we have people in place that have the responsibility to review them from time to time. Because what is the definition? When you say security situation, what do you mean when security is worse? How do you define it? When you say something in scientific terms, when you say when something is 70 against 30, you are clear about that. I taught a course in 100 level basic concepts of political science, and it is to define when you say rule of law. What do you mean when you say democracy? What exactly does that mean? Not to just come and say when people are taking.
Insecurity is a very wide concept.
Yes, exactly. So now, is it to say that because how many pipelines do you need to blow to have insecurity in rivers, for example? Is it 2 or 3? If the president make pronouncement over 3, after 3 pipelines are blown, then you say, but the law says it's 4. So that sort of thing, need to be clear to some extent so that nobody comes around and say, hey, Mr. President, you're being partisan here, you are being biased.
Sometimes I think our constitution can be vague sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
And then leaves room for
all count.
Yes,
It can't be. Even like issue of misconduct. What is gross misconduct? They wanted to impeach the man.
That is why the judiciary is there
please, gentlemen,
for proper
just
interpretation
yes.
of the law.
Yes.
But I still want you to speak to the role the sole administration should play in maintaining peace and order in Rivers State.
Okay.
Yeah, because outside, like Jide said, all this political quagmire now is beclouding everything to the extent that you hardly even find explanation to many of the things that have happened or that are likely to happen. But, under normal circumstances, the sole administrator should play the role in which the process will be managed,
transparent,
in the absence of elected officials.
Okay.
With all the conditions of service that are laid before him. And this is very simple. But you have a problem when you talk about where does he source funding from? Who funds him? If the funding is coming from the presidency, on what basis? If it has to be gotten from the state, based on the allocation and approval by the state assembly, has it taken place before his institution took place? So these questions, only if answered, could clearly position the administrator to do what they are supposed to do. So in the absence, normally in administration, when you have absence of these, conditions that will provide for effective governance, all that the administrator will be doing is to symbolize administration, but without necessarily, implementing, actions that will provide progress and development.
Yes, Dr. Hayatu, thank you. Let's bring Professor Adeniyi. Professor Adeniyi, 6 months, literally speaking, is just the blink of an eye. And that's the length of time that the sole administrator, in the initial stage, has to govern Rivers State, ensure there is peace, restore the warring parties and all that. And I'm just wondering, is that a tall tough, or has this whole brouhaha just started?
Well, sorry again, subject to network. I'm not sure it's a route we want to go. Really, it is an aberration, and of course, it's not something we need in the dispensation that we're in. Because we know what soul administration, like somebody said, is not from the state. It does not understand the nuances, the history, their needs, and it has no immediate or distant background of what the environment is like. So it's not going to be able to put in his best, try as he might, So that's why I said it's an aberration. It's not something that we need, and it's something we should get done with as soon as possible, so that the man can use the door. The president, again, holds the ace in the circumstance. He can hold it very firmly. He can also hold it very softly. There's a way he can rein in. He can call the warring parties to the table and bring them to have understanding and resolve this matter. Because if we have a sustained state of emergency like this, there's a way it can create a longer-lasting crisis of confidence in the economy and in the polity. And it's not a route I imagine the president will want to travel, as the case could be.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Adeniyi. You want to, what? Okay, okay, let me just come to Jide now. Because we are trying to wind up the conversation now. Professor Adeniyi mentioned that the federal government cannot leave it solely for the sole administrator. So how do you think the federal government can engage other stakeholders, like local leaders, probably the civil society organization, and the warring parties, in addressing this crisis in Rivers State?
See, the best way to go is make the resolution non-partisan. The partisan interest is what led into the crisis. If you want to resolve it, and that's why my persistent calling has been to resolve this, the leaders of thought, leaders opinion and traditional and religious leaders in Rivers have been partisans for and against. So that is why, you know, there was a mention of Pandef. No, the president did not mention Pandef.
No, not in this.
But, you know, last week Pandef met with him. And that same day, the FCT minister was saying, who is Pandef? Pandef is the worst organization. So, who do you have confidence in? You don't have confidence in. Pandef met with Fubara. They want to meet with the FCT minister. He refused to meet with them. So, is it that group that you now thought the two warring factions will have confidence to go? That's why you need an independent, non-partisan, eminent Nigerians to mediate. In fact, these 6 months should be to mediate, because another election looms next year. We always have this notion that rivers of blood. I believe this is not the first time you are hearing that. At every election season, there is a lot of killing, maiming, destruction of life and property. And if this issue is not resolved amicably before the next electoral season, if it's allowed to nosedive, it will make the next election to be more violent. So the best is, while the sole administrator will do his level best, given the fact that he's not from the state, he doesn't understand, beyond the fact that he's a naval officer, may have worked in Rivers for a period, but now he needs people to have confidence in his ability. But the bigger challenge is this: who pays the contractual obligation? Who meets the contractual obligations that the state have been committed to? You know, now you have suspended all elected, officials in the state. So it will now depend solely, the sole administrator will depend heavily on the civil servants to navigate the administration of the state. And we know what civil servants can do. But by and large, that is the best the system can offer him at this time.
The civil service is reforming.
It's reforming.
Yes, it's reforming.
I agree. It's reforming.
It's reforming.
But it has to do better.
No. Let's not make sweeping statements. Yes, because there are good ambassadors in this civil service. But let me ask you. Yes. Let me ask you finally in 60 seconds. Now, is the suggested peaceful resolution, likely peaceful resolution, might that be a lifeline for Governor Fubara? Or is he gone?
No, it will be a lifeline for everybody. 3 sides to it. 2 sides to it and 1 at the center. The people of Rivers State are the center. Okay? You have the Honorable Minister for FCT. Okay? And then you have the governor himself. I agree with Jide that we should have such a peace mechanism that is non-partisan. I also would add that we should avoid insinuations against Mr. President. Avoid insinuations against the governor, because he's still the governor, he's only suspended. Avoid insinuation against the FCT minister. Let's avoid those kind of rhetorics.
And inflammatory
rhetorics at this moment. Let's look for a viable way of entrenching rule of law. I keep preaching it like a gospel.
Okay, just 30 seconds.
Okay.
30 seconds.
You want to be realistic about this, is to stop pretending that the FCT minister is not part of this. Because all of this, there is no mentioning of the FCT minister or making reference to any of his acts by, for example, from the side of the presidency. So just because the president believes that he is not the governor, so they are not, but the main crux of the problem lies there. So you have to begin to know how to bring him into the picture so that you solve this problem.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Aminu Ayatu, Political Science Department, Bayero University. Thank you so much for your perspective on this issue. Also, I want to thank Jide Ojo, as usual. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Very combative. This.
Yes. You took it out of my mouth.
That's right, right?
Yes.
It's okay. All right. James Igwe, SAN, legal practitioner, thank you so much for your contribution as well.
Thank you. May God bless Nigeria.
Professor
It's
Adeni.
always yours for a greater Nigeria.
Amen. And also our Zoom guest, Professor Abiodun Adeni, Professor of Mass Communication Based University. Thank you so much for joining us. No, you said we shouldn't.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thanks for staying with us. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.